Hey guys, so I'm gonna try this again. It looked like the way that I did this last time was my stream wasn't set up properly for Revit. For whatever reason, it wasn't showing the window. So let's try this again. The date is December 9th, and today we're just gonna do a review of our little final exam for Revit for ARC 252. So this should be the last time you see me until Wednesday when we're going to write our little virtual exam. So there were some questions about what was going to be on the exam, of course, last Wednesday. So I just wanted to touch on that as well as go over a brief but kind of important part of something that is likely being the key word here, going to be on our little final exam. So a couple different things that I discussed in the last video, but I'll just go over it again here. We've got our final exam is on December 11th, virtual exam, of course. I will be coming into Humber on Wednesday and be in place between 1:30 and 4, but the exam is only going to take you 1.5 hours. So 1.5 hours, 90 minutes, however you want to cut it. The exam will start, it will open at 1:30 and it will close at 3 o'clock. So be ready for that. It is only an hour and a half, a little bit different than our previous exam for the midterm here. It's going to be much shorter, so I think that that's positive. I think it's good for everybody. But I do think that I just wanted to go over some things that may or may not be on the exam and just some tips and tricks, especially around design options and then visibility graphics. So important for us all to know, important for us to understand how to perform design options. So just a couple things here. So design options being one thing, visibility graphics, groups, modifying an area plan, updating a schedule, and potentially creating, well, you'll likely have to create a new sheet. So try and cover a couple of these things today. I'm not going to do everything, but I do think that the design options was a big one. Probably touch on visibility graphics a little bit. And yeah, so very different from our midterm. What's going to happen is you're going to find online on Blackboard, I'll post a kind of existing set of drawings, and you'll need to make modifications to those existing set of drawings. It won't be like our midterm where you're doing everything from scratch. So not going to be from scratch. You're going to have a kind of preliminary file to kind of hang out with, and I think that this is going to be important for us to see. So with that being said, why don't we just jump into Revit here? I'm going to do a very similar example to the previous video, but also to what I did in class. So if you missed in class, fair enough. This video should help support you through the exam on Wednesday. Not holding anybody's hand. So this is going to be, you got an hour and a half to figure it out. But this video should help you if you're unsure about how to use design options. It is a kind of highlight of the syllabus. It's also a highlight of the program, making sure you know how to use these. So it's not going to be complicated, but I think that it's important to know how to get into the tool itself. So we got our little Revit little jam here. So we got our best in town office building. I think that just a good place to start for us. Really, it's going to be, the exam is going to be somewhat similar to this project. It'll be a little smaller, I imagine. I haven't built it yet, so I'm going to build it a little bit later tonight, if not tomorrow. And so what do we want to talk about first? So I really feel like design options was something that everybody kind of wanted a kind of second crack at, and we're just going to talk through that a little bit. First things first, we can see here, this is our main model. Our design options aren't active yet. We've got just our main model, and you can see that it's all grayed out down here, this little design options box. We don't have any design options, so there's no need for us to get into a design option. There's nothing that exists here. It's just the main model. So design options are really useful when we are trying to do multiple ideas for the same base project. So oftentimes in the office, someone will say, well, I've got an idea. You say, oh, okay. So, but I don't want to modify the existing building. I don't want to modify our existing model. I want to create a design option. And I'm going to walk us through the process of what that looks like. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a kind of base model design option, which is nothing. And then we're going to create just two other options for the design options. So we'll have option 1, nothing, so no modification. Option 2 is we're going to put a little vestibule down here on our southern portion of our building. And then option 3 will build a little northern vestibule as a separate design option. So remember, when we are building our design options, think of them like a mini model on a little layer, really, for lack of a better word. It's like a little layer inside of Revit, but you can modify the visibility graphics to only show certain parts of the design option on each drawing. So really that's going to be the focus of the exam, is we're going to think about, we've got the main model like we see here, and then we'll have one small modification in design option 2, and then a design option 3 is going to show a kind of third option. So if you forget how to get into the design options, really the best way to get there is I like to use the tool down here on the bottom of our little bar here. And I'm going to double check here just on the stream, make sure everything's showing up when I hit this design options, make sure I'm showing everything. So bear with me, little technical housekeeping here. So design options, and I'm going to double check here. So that looks like it's showing up correctly. We've got the design options dialog. So for whatever reason, the software I was using didn't host these images, these menus. So if you saw me kind of dancing around here, that's fair enough. Now I got to re-record that session. So it's going to be basically the same content, except you're going to get access to these wonderful little menus instead of me just talking to thin air. So let's go back. I'm just going to close this real quick. A couple ways to get there. We're going to come over to the Manage ribbon in the Design Options panel. Click that Design Options tool, and now we've got the Design Options menu has emerged. So right now it's blank. We've got nothing in there. I'm just going to go ahead and hit close, and we're going to show you a different way to get here. The way I typically get here is a little bit of a shortcut, but it's probably the one that I find the most effective to get here. Is we've got this little button down here. It is, you'll see Design Options. We just hover over it, don't click. Hover over it, and we can see we've got Design Options hanging out there. If I come up here, hover over it, Design Options, it's the same button. It just lives in two places inside Revit. We're trying to optimize the number of ways that we can get to design options. So if I just go ahead, I'm going to reopen that menu, and these are our design options. Again, we're now editing the main model, so we don't have any design options. The first thing we need to do is open an option set. So an option set is basically what is the portion of the building that we want to create a set of design options for. In our case, we're using it to generate a couple of vestibule options. So a couple of vestibule options, this could be anything. It could be the windows. It could be an additional outbuilding. It could be an extension on the building. It could be any number of things within the main model that we make modifications to kind of extend or change. And they live really inside of the model, but on a kind of separate design option space. So first thing we got to do is create this option set. We're going to stick to vestibules. I think it's just a kind of valuable, simple thing to look at here. I'm going to go ahead and hit new option set. And we can see here we've got option set 1, and that is our design option. So now we've got the design options, option sets, with one design option here, option 1 primary. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to rename this real quick. So you go ahead and rename this. I'm just going to call it vestibules. Vestibule option set. And we'll just jump down here. And we want to do 3 options. I just want to show you guys the kind of nothing option. And then we'll do a southern vestibule. And then we'll do a northern vestibule. So we're really going to have 3 options underneath that vestibule option set. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a couple options here. You can have as many or as few options as you want. Some helpful things that we may or may not get into here. I'll just walk through what these tools are. So new, of course, is to generate a new option. Make primary is, we'll get to this in a little bit. Rename, obviously we can rename these. So I'm going to rename the option here. We'll do option 1, no vestibule. Option 2, we'll rename this to be dash, where's my dash? South vestibule. And we'll do option 3, rename north vestibule. So I would argue it's really important to kind of take care when we make these option sets, because when we're naming them, it's going to help us later if we appropriately name our file structure for our design options. It's going to become important just so you remember which option you've got, which option you've drawn on which option set. So here we've got options 1, 2, and 3 just for vestibule. So we'll start with a vestibule and that little primary there. So the primary is saying, what is our primary option within the option set? And this is the one that Revit is going to show in all of our views. So, provided we haven't made any other changes, but we'll get there. So the primary option is the one that's going to be showing up in our main model view, provided we don't make any other additional changes. So let's start there. So if I go ahead, I'm just going to hit close here. What's happened? Nothing has happened. We're just kind of hanging out in the main model, but you'll notice that we now have this little drop down menu or drop up menu on the right side of the screen along our taskbar here. And we've got a couple different options. So we've got the main model. That's what we're drawing in. That means we can touch and mess around with our main model space. But then we've got these other options within the vestibule option set. So option 1, no vestibule. Option 2, south vestibule. Option 3, north vestibule. So what does that mean? So if I click on one of these, you should see the rest of our model get locked out. So currently, I can't touch anything. I can touch the annotations, but I can't touch any of the kind of walls or the doors or anything outside of our main model. So, inside of our main model. So we are currently in option 1, the no vestibule option, but I can't do anything. I can't touch any of this existing building. So the way that this operates is now we are kind of outside of the main model. We're existing in a kind of, I want to say the forbidden zone, but outside of the kind of space of the model itself. So currently in option 1, we're going to leave this one for now. But one thing that very quickly what we can do is if I just jump back to main model, I can now, again, touch what is our main model, right? Makes sense? So why don't I do this real quick is let's do a little southern vestibule here. So same thing, I'm going to do a little option for our south vestibule. I'm going to draw a little wall in here. Doesn't really matter what it looks like. This is not going to be the most beautiful vestibule you've ever seen. I just want us to get familiar with drawing inside of an option set. So right now, maybe I'll do a little door. I'll do a little window. Whoops. Little window hanging out, something like this. Some beautiful little vestibule. So you'll notice that everything else outside has been grayed out. So anything in the main model space is now gray. Anything in our option for option 2 is now live. So we can touch and mess around with all these little pieces, the wall, the floor, the door, the roof, which we'll make. It's just important to understand that this is now inside the model, but it lives in its own kind of, multiverse of choice. So we've got a little multiverse example again, where we're thinking about multiple design options. This is in our case, design option 2. So what happens if I jump back to design option 1? Just coming down here, if I hit design option 1, everything disappears. So we've got design option 1, remember, no vestibule. And that is, remember, our primary option. If I just open this up again, it's our primary option, no vestibule. Close that. So again, remember, we can't touch our main model, even though we're here inside of our primary option. We need to go all the way back to main model in order to touch these pieces. So why don't we do this first? So if I jump down to making option 2, our south vestibule, what I can do is I'm inside the design options menu. I can actually make this the primary option if I hit this make primary button. And what that's going to do, it's going to kind of bring everything forward to say, okay, you want the south vestibule to be the primary option. Let's go. So make primary, close. Great. So now I'm inside the main model. You can see here in this little menu, I'm inside the main model, and I can touch everything inside the main model. However, I can't touch design option 2 because it lives outside of our main model. So handy tip is if you are frustrated by this, like I remember using Revit and being extraordinarily frustrated, why can't I just make modifications to the primary option if it lives as the kind of main option that I want to work on? So we can actually click this little handy dandy button down here, the exclude options checkbox. So if you click that, I now can touch these other pieces of the model. In order to kind of stay safe, it's best practice to keep that on and really only make your edits inside of the design option. You know, inside here, I can move these walls, do what I got to do to make design changes to those design options. So that's, how we use the design option and set the primary. If I want to go ahead and I want to set that, reset it to no vestibule as our primary option, I jump back in here, see I changed my mind, go back, make this the primary. It's going to give me some error. That's okay. Hit close. And now we're back to main model and our design option with nothing. So no change here, primary option. Third option, let's do a north vestibule. Option 3, north vestibule. I just come down here to the drop up menu, click north vestibule. We're going to do a very similar thing. And I'll start on the right. And a very similar thing. I'm just going to draw a little vestibule at the north side. So a little bit different here. Probably give ourselves a little rolling door vestibule. Best case. Maybe a little person door down here. Oh, don't want to double. Single door. Okay, whatever. Doesn't really matter. So we've got again, this is design option 3. We've got a little vestibule on the north side. So hopefully that looks, pleasing to the eye, all that fun stuff. So we've got design option 3 hanging out. This is the north vestibule. So now we've got 2 options, technically 3. The number 1 option has nothing in it. Option 2 has a south vestibule, and option 3 has the north vestibule. So if I go ahead, I go back to the main model, you'll see everything turns off. Well, why did it turn off? My goodness, didn't I just do all that work on the north vestibule? Again, remember, if I come into our design options here, it's because our no vestibule option is set as the primary. If I want to make that northern vestibule the primary, I come in here, make primary. Now we're good to go. So you can see here, everything is now showing a little bit how I want it to show. And so this is an important part of how we use the design option tool. Remember, now I can't touch anything within design option 3. Say I wanted to change this door. Maybe I want to check what this one is, exterior door, but now I just can't touch it. So remember, we have this little exclude options down here. We can click this, jump in here. Let's look for the exterior single, this one down here. Looks pretty good, right? Maybe I'll give it a little align. Whoops. Oh, I just did the thing that I said I wasn't going to do. So make sure you got that little checkbox. Where is my L? Trying to align. Let's just try and align this door. Interesting. Okay, so the align tool doesn't seem to want to function right now, and then it jumps immediately back. So let's just go ahead, and I'm actually realizing that maybe this doesn't always work. So you can see that it's jumped back, and the exclude options here is not functioning. So really, we'll turn on option 3, and let's see if we can get our door aligned there. That's all I wanted to do, is just align the door, and that's all good. So you'll notice now that I'm in option 3 that the button has changed. Now we've got this active only checkbox. So really what it's saying to Revit is you only want to operate inside of this design option, right? So I can only touch things inside of this design option. Let's say, for instance, I wanted to make a modification to this interior door as part of the main model. What do we have to do? Normally, I would say we're going to come back into the main model, but we can also check this little checkbox here, hit that little check mark, and now we should be able to touch these pieces. This isn't best practice, but I just want you guys to see that this is something that we can do. Best practice is going to be making sure we are using the correct drawing, and we're drawing in the correct design option as things go forward. So that is really the basics of getting to design options. One thing just to kind of continue here is we see in the option set, rename, and then below here we've got accept primary. So if we hit that accept primary button, it gets rid of all of our other options, and it accepts what would be currently our option 3, north vestibule. So you'll find yourselves, if you're in the office, somebody might say to you, we've got 6 different design options, and then you've got to build those options. It can be an effective way to build things inside of Revit in a way that isn't disruptive, is what we would call a kind of non-destructive modeling. So we're really modeling things inside of the software that don't have any permanent impact on the overall structure of the model, for instance. So for us, we got a couple of different options here. I'm just going to go ahead. We don't need to delete any of these, but you could also delete them. Say you didn't want one. Say I make a new one. Whoops, I did a new option set there. Say we want to delete the option set. We can do that. That's cool. Say we create a new option and we didn't actually want to do that. We just hit delete. A helpful one is duplicate. So why don't I just touch on this? It's not going to be part of the exam, but just so you can see how this works, is that if we had, say, multiple of very similar design options, we might suggest, maybe one has a different depth than our, let's just make this a primary so we can see what's happening. Maybe one has a different depth. Maybe one has a window. Maybe one has no doors or what have you. You can make any sort of thing up. Let's rename this option 2A, and then I'm going to duplicate it. So if I duplicate it, we'll call this, again, make sure our naming convention is correct, option 2B, south vestibule, that's fine. And now we got option 2A and 2B. So now we got 4 options total. So what does that look like? If we jump down here to option 2A, which is our primary, that's cool. But we want to modify this a little bit. But if we jump to option 2B, it's going to be a carbon copy of that option 2. So we got option 2A, option 2B the same. But what if I just delete these windows? Now I've got, option 2A, option 2B, option 3, back off a little bit, option 3, and option 1. Right, so we've got 4 different little options in here. If I jump back to main model space, remember option 2A is the primary. If I make it option 2B, make that the primary, it gets rid of our windows there. So really, that would be the main things that I'd want to see from us on the design options. I should also mention that we can do things like create little roofs in there or floors. There were some comments, I should say, on Wednesday, some concerns about roofs. So if we want to do that real quick, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to model a roof real quick inside of our options here. And so architecture, roof, just do our basic roof here. Remember, we've got, I'm just going to go blam. Real quick. Doing this very quick, guys, so let's make sure that everything looks the part. Well, check mark in here. Let's just jump to 3D and see what we get. So keep an eye on our little options here. So jump to 3D here. So the same thing goes inside of all of our views. So inside of our 3D view now, I've created this roof inside of option 2A. Right? If I jump to option 2B now, even though we duplicated it earlier, we duplicated it before we made this roof. So what's going to happen? No roof. Right? So option 3, it's now on the north side. Had this issue yesterday as well. It's going to make sure I jump back to the main model here, and I am going to extend our section box just a little bit. Jump back to option 3 here. If I wanted to grab a real quick roof in here, I'm just going to super quickly model this. Pick a couple of these. Slope. Now I got my roof. Check mark, right? It's all good. And then I'll show you a quick tip here. What we can do is we can actually, I'm just going to copy paste this. So I'm going to grab this little copy tool here. I'm going to jump to 2B here. And I remember we can go to modify and paste, align to same place. Real quick, real easy. Now we've got these 4 options hanging out. One with windows, one without, one with no vestibule, and one with the north vestibule. Right? Hopefully that all makes sense. And if I wanted to, I'm realizing I'm also missing a little parapet cap here, so keep an eye on this one. Let's jump over here to our little parapet. If you remember, we've got our little wall sweeps. It's going to give ourselves a nice little, whoops, almost, guys. Nice little, there it is. Just trying to build a little quick little sweep here. It's trying to, I see what's going on. It's trying to figure out how to connect to the main model. So you're seeing that error is because it's trying to connect to a main model geometry, which we don't want to do. We want to make sure we keep everything inside of our design option. There we go. I was concerned there for a second. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this again, option 2A. You can see here it disappears. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that in place. Make sure we got our paste aligned to place. Interesting. Okay, it won't let me paste the sweeps here, so I got to generate the sweeps again. But that's okay. I think you guys get the idea. If I just go ahead in here, I'm going to have to, I thought I could copy them. I cannot. So I just going to need to generate a new one. So it's all good. Just got to generate a little geometry in here. Done. Just 0. Ta-da, something like this. Anywho, so I'm going to jump back to the main model here. Let's go to our main floor level. And the second thing I wanted to touch on were the visibility graphics. So why don't we do that real quick? Visibility graphics, some things I might ask you to do are to change the fill of the wall, right? So change maybe some line weights, some wall fills, some colors on some plans, right? I want us to be able to know how to modify a couple of these things in the visibility graphics. Remember our walls, right? If I just go ahead and I'm looking for my cut patterns here. So if I go ahead and I just want to make this a solid fill with, let's give it gray over here. And let's go ahead and hit OK. Right? So I can see here that we've definitely got, we can still see the inside elements inside our wall. So that's okay for now. But say, for instance, if I made that all black, let's just jump back down here and make this all black. You should see the walls kind of fill in here. Let's do this real quick. Ta-da. Right? So, might be one thing. Maybe I go ahead and I want to see our furniture systems as a halftone. Halftone makes them a little gray, right? So a little gray in there. Maybe what we do is maybe we make our windows something. Why don't we go ahead and we can make our windows just so they really pop. Let's get our windows in here, get our cut lines for our windows. Let's see if we can make them black. Actually, that doesn't matter. So let's leave that. No override. And then for the weight, what happens if we just make it 1 here? Right? Not much of a change. These may already be 1. But if I go ahead and one thing you might have to do, this is going to be the curveball if anybody's watching this video, you may have to clear the overrides. So in order to clear the overrides, click on an existing situation, hit clear, hit OK, hit apply, and you can see how everything has popped back. So once again, I'll do that real quick. Let's go to Windows, check out the override, change the weight of that line, hit OK. You can see how everything is nice and crisp now, right? So one little thing for us, maybe we want to turn the dimensions off. Maybe we don't want to see all these dimensions. So remember, we got to jump over to the annotations, dimensions, everything turns off. All right, so I do want us to remember some of these tools to make sure that we get our visibility graphics showing up nice and tidy. So visibility graphics looking pretty good. So why don't we go ahead and we're going to generate a couple of floor plans. So what I'd like to do is I'm actually going to set the primary option first before we get started here. I'm going to set the primary option to no vestibule. Set the primary option to no vestibule just to become clear on what's happening in our plans. So I'm going to jump down to A101 here. This is an existing drawing, of course. And now we've got this existing drawing. Remember, we've changed all our visibility graphics in here. Got that overlay happening. You can also, I can remind us that we can also access that visibility graphics inside of our sheet. It's not really best practice, but it's definitely something that I do all the time. So we can modify our visibility graphics inside the sheet by right-clicking and activating the view. Conversely, deactivating the view when we're done. So why don't we keep going here? And a couple things we want to do is we are going to make sure that I like to do this in a couple stages here. So drawing A101, we'll do A101-A. Oh, let's just do A, and then we're going to call this main floor. Whoops. Design option. Whoops. Option 1. Do the same thing over here. We're going to make sure that we rename this. Whoops. Design option 1. So I'm not going to rename the levels, but just for us. So, all right, design option 1. So how do we know there's design option 1? Well, currently it's our primary option. One thing we can do is we can actually force Revit to only show the options we want it to inside of our view here. So I'm going to go ahead and right click, activate this view, go to our visibility graphics all the way over here on the right in the design options tab, and you'll see automatic here, vestibule option set. We're actually going to force this to show no vestibule primary, hit apply, hit OK. And now, no matter what I do, it's not going to show me my option. It's forced to show that design option 1 with no vestibule. So super quick here, I'm going to duplicate this entire sheet. I'm going to make sure I duplicate it with the views. Make sure we do this important step. Duplicate with the views, duplicate with detailing. We'll do that. And now we've got our second little piece here. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this design option to A. Design option to A. And now when I double click, or I can right click and activate the view, go to my visibility graphics, jump over here to the right, and I'm going to set this to option 2A, hit OK, and we're done. So just like that, all of those visibility graphics changes we've made have now, it's already here. Everything's done for us. So we got design option 2A. We should probably rename this to be A101. Let's call it B. And let's just do the last one here. Well, actually there's 2, but let's just go ahead and I'm going to do design option 3 for us. So right click, duplicate sheet with views, duplicate with detailing, right? And now I'm just going to skip to design option 3 for us. I'm going to rename this 3. Whoops, 03, I think I called it. Whoops. Down here, let's just call this C. And then I'm going to right click, activate this view, go to visibility graphics, come over to the design options, and I'm going to select north vestibule. Pretty slick, right? So now if I was to I jump here, now I've got 3 different sheets with 3 different options. So this can be really helpful. Again, if you're inside the office and somebody says, I want these 3 different options, we've got the base model on the right. We've kind of got our design option 1, no changes. And then we've got a couple iterations here. We're on the left-hand side, we've got design option 2, 2A in this case, and then design option 3. Yeah, so that's part of this. That's part of what will happen on Wednesday. And again, I'm not going to go through this right now, but groups is also going to be super important for us to know. So remember how to group things super quickly. I guess I could do one small example. Let's jump back to our, I'm going to close my inactive views, jump back into this. Remember that very simply what I might do is ask you to, rather than do these all as separate elements, we didn't know how to do this at the time. Oh, I've deleted my structure. So make sure when we're selecting things, we want to stay away from deleting our structural columns. Let's delete this real quick. One thing that can be helpful, we can select this kind of branch of stuff, and we're going to come up here to our create group. Whoops. So same thing. I missed my filter here. Make sure we filter out our structural columns, and we're going to group these together, and it's going to call it furniture system 1. And then very quickly going to copy these over. I just want us to know, to remember how we can create little groups. Super important. Will help you later on. Remember, we can edit this group, and it functions a lot like a block. So say for instance, I hit finish. Now everything is updated, right? So this can be really helpful for creating things in a kind of quick way. I didn't do this for the midterm assignment because what happens is it just creates some complexity in the model. And for us, we just weren't ready for groups yet. But you can see how powerful it can be if I just hit this edit group again and copy it down, copy this family down, and go ahead and hit check mark. And now we have our groups all as little pieces for our furniture. Nice and tidy. So next up, I did want to touch on area plans. There is just a small thing here with the area plans. I wanted to, no, I see it's on my sheet. Okay, I'll do this in the sheet view. I did recognize yesterday as I was editing this, I don't think this is going to have the updated version in it, but let's go ahead and check it out anyways. I had my rentable on my rentable basement on the wrong plan. So let's just make sure we correct that right now. Yeah, there it is. Area plan basement, staring me right in the face. So if you do remember, we've got our little schedule. This may or may not be on the exam. We've got a little edit of the schedule here. So this is clearly incorrect. What we can do is it shows the filter is showing the main floor level. I actually want to show the, equals the basement. Go ahead and hit OK here. Should update. Basement looks good. And if I jump down to here, this is this is showing the basement floor level. Just a small little hiccup there. Let's go ahead and we will edit our filter here to show main floor level. Should be back in action. So it's that simple, just to update things. However, one thing I did want to talk about was how do we update, say, in this option, right? So I know we did the area plans as part of our assignment. This may or may not be part of Wednesday's little test, is what if I said to you, I'd like you to make the core bigger and the back of house bigger by 1 meter, right? So by 1 meter, we probably have to be beyond the window here, so it's probably going to be around 1,500. But how do we do that? How do we make the area plan bigger? So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to right click, activate the view here, and I'm going to go ahead and select my walls. And I'm going to move this whole thing over by 1,200. Let's do it. Unjoin, that's cool. Oops. Unjoin, so, well, I guess, how do I fix this, right? So how do I fix this? So if you remember from our little assignment, very quickly, what we have to do is we have to find where are the area lines, the area boundaries that we created earlier. And if you remember, that is also within our visibility graphics. So I'm going to go down here to, remember it's in our lines tool. So our lines, and we have this off, very tricky. Turn on area boundary. Now we've got this. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to align this. Everything updates, so super quick. Let's see, take a look at our, what are we updating? Back of house, core, and foyer. So all of those things you'll see jump from 102, 64, and 151 to 158, 72, 108. And our office space, of course, is also updated. Our purple lines are back. So how do we change that? We're going to come back to the line tool down here. We're going to grab this and make sure we just turn off our area boundary here. Ta-da. So that's it. That is likely the main thing. So modify an area plan, update the schedule, which happens when we modify the area plan correctly, and then making new sheets. So I think I've covered everything I was thinking for tips and tricks and groups. So design options being the major concern, I would say, for our Wednesday little challenge here. One thing you'll notice is just don't get tricked with this. I'm realizing something that might catch us on Wednesday is if I activate my little view here, you can see that currently I'm inside the main model. Make sure that we're not messing around with this stuff, right? So these will appear if we're showing one of these other options. So best probably to keep our main model blank, but in terms of design options, we may, have to add a little area to one of our design options, right? So keep all of this stuff in mind. I encourage everybody to kind of watch the video, practice. It's a good thing to practice. I know we got just over a day here left. I'll post this video and then, tomorrow, unfortunately, I have another commitment. So this video is going to serve as tomorrow's virtual class. And I'll chat with you guys. If you've got questions or comments, send me a note on Blackboard. And if not, keep going, keep practicing. I know I said it in the last video. We've had, roughly 56 hours together. 56? 4 by 14. 56 hours in the classroom together. Plenty of time to kind of get a taste of Revit. You guys are thinking about other things. You're thinking about D&D. You're thinking about all the other things you got to get done. Once you get into the office, you're going to have 40 hours a week, with this software outside of coffee breaks and hanging out, all the other fun things, the meetings. This is just a taste. This is just the taste of it. You're going to practice. You're going to get more familiar with the way we use the shortcuts and all the fun things that are within the Revit interface. And this is just to get us a little bit of the way there. Again, this idea of the 1.5 hour practice exam here, practice exam, rephrase that. So the final exam is really a practice for us to get ready for, inevitably, you will have a Revit test as part of your employment. I know I've said this in class. I'm just going to reiterate it. This is important for us to understand. Somebody's going to give you a set of drawings or a task, and you're going to have to demonstrate that you know how to use the software. And this is definitely, lots of these things are going to be on there. It could be anything. I don't know what the test would be, but there are lots of things that it could be. Anywho, so we'll chat on Wednesday. I'll post this video, which you won't know until it's posted. But other than that, give me any feedback you've got. If I went too quickly over things, just rewind. I've got a new little setup here, so I think it's a little better. Sound-wise, definitely better, but looking for any sort of feedback I can get from you guys. If I go over two things too quickly, all those fun things. So thanks so much for hanging out. We'll chat more on Wednesday.